100%. It's the more you've had me working on this 4-year journey of the uncommon success player, because what I've generally seen is that 4 years from the start day, there tends to be a massive transformation. People who show up, by the time they're 4 years in, they've become a mentor, they've got multiple gyms, they're doing events around the world, they become a thought leader. Like, there's way too many of them we're talking about this morning of like, there's maybe like somewhere between 500 and 1,000 people have like properly engaged with the stuff that I've done. And there's probably 100 who've become serious leaders, like they've won a world title as a coach, or they've got over 100,000 followers, and they can live location independent, or people know Ben Patrick and Nico, and there's other guys who've won world titles with teams and done all kinds of stuff. And that probably isn't happening out of 500 or 1,000 students in many other programs. And why is it that is happening? That's what we're looking to reverse engineer, but the time frame tends to be like that 4 years, and it would be great to be able to shorten that path. And I think by identifying what's actually happening, like that's also the best chance of it. But yeah, circling back to the conversation with Alex, it's sort of like that decision as a coach to start making more money, I think, is a key part of the process. We actually finally decide, because Alex, you started the conversation with, look, I was single at one stage and what I was doing was fine, and now things have changed and I need to change. And then there's stress that comes with needing to change. But yeah, there's certainly like a process of upskilling yourself and building a foundation of knowledge in sales and marketing and product development and community management. And to think that it's all just going to work from day one or from the beginning, like I had no idea what I was getting into in 2014 when I left working professionally in rugby league, started a mentoring business. I really had no idea I didn't know what copywriting was for the first 6-7 years in business. We didn't have sales scripts. Like there was no real systems. At the same time, we got great results because there was a desire to make change, and we knew what the end goal was. And I think passion and energy can definitely take you a long way. What Zach brings to the equation, I think this is a good intro for this series, is how do you get beyond that? Because at some point, just passion and energy and deciding it's going to work no matter what becomes tiresome, or it reaches a point where like you can't scale, you can't get to that next level. I've said a bunch of times, I've had 7 businesses now get to 50 grand a month. I've had 0 businesses get to 200 grand a month. So like there's something there that's like between 50 and 200. It's not happening. I've probably had maybe 4 or 5 like 100 grand months since the start. So this is sort of what I'm working with Zach on, but then the concept of business, what are these business systems? I think you can start on a lot of this stuff earlier and probably do better from earlier. And that's in the goal of this series, is to dive into that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a perfect jumping off point. And I think with these, I kind of break them down to like almost documenting what we're doing together, because it's exactly what he said, like 7 businesses hit 50, which is 7 more than a lot of people. But getting from 50 to 200 and beyond is that chasm that a lot of businesses don't cross. And we were talking about it last week in our one-on-one, is like, there's a lot of resources around building an offer or sales copy or sales scripts or like funnels or lead nurture. There's not a lot of stuff around, what does my team look like to get to 100 grand plus? Like, what do I have to do strategically to think through, what am I building now versus what's in the future? How do I deliver such a great product that it can scale incrementally as we grow? And then how do you support everyone on the team while you're doing that? Like, everyone loves to talk about the sexy stuff, but I think a lot of the stuff we've been diving into, especially in the first like week or two, has been a lot of the strategy and operations. And I kind of see this call as almost documenting the journey of like what we're doing with Uncom conceptually, both high level of like the concepts, and then like having some Q&A time of like, how do the guys apply this to their business? Because I think like it'll be a cool way to document like how we're growing Uncom from where it is now to 250K plus. And then it'll kind of like give a little peek behind the kimono of how you can apply this to your business. So I think like when we've been working together this first week, that player journey has been a big one. what have been the biggest insights for you there?
I was just sharing the link across the chat.
Yeah.
It's been really good. Like, it's kind of frustrating when people ask you these, summarize uncommon success in one sentence. And I actually kind of still haven't made up with a friend who asked me that question too many times. When he was working with me as a consultant as well, Dan Abad. He's a good friend, but like at some point it's difficult sometimes to get that message across, especially with a complex, the problem that we're solving of how to help men have life on their own terms, to be athletic, richer, and smarter. It's very easy to say something that's kind of cliche of like, you can say it really simply, or you can say it, but then it loses its meaning. And so going back of what are we actually doing here? This is something that I would encourage all of you to do. And maybe you can do it mentally, or write a few notes right now of like, 4 years after working with you, where would someone be? And I would say very few businesses have actually thought about things in that way, because it's usually like the lifetime value of a customer is like 12 weeks, but the lifetime value of the customer might be, 2 to 3 months, because you don't have a plan for them of where they're going to be 4 years from now. And therefore they're not going to stay for that time. And I'm 100% been guilty of that. Now, mapping this out of, okay, why is it that it's been that guys have been having that big transformation over 4 years? And then what are the key elements to that? How do we break it down? I've been breaking it down into the athletic, richer, smarter. And we started to talk about mastermind at breakfast, because Kevin asked me like, how's it going with the map? And I was like, I haven't even addressed the mastermind yet. But imagine that you meet these connection calls are happening and you're meeting people from around the world. If you maintain that contact and you do go from just getting started to finally having a better business, traveling, and you go through this journey and you're tracking along with each other for 4 years, like, it's going to be a very deep connection. If you meet up a few times face to face and you know about each other's businesses and the struggles, and it is going to build some serious connections. So I'm excited about that element of the 4 year journey. But even just writing things down, like you were talking about, like that slow cook of entrepreneurship of like, okay, put a free offer. Like, what would your free offer? At granular level, it's like 5 minutes of value. When you get on these connect calls, have 5 minutes of value that you can deliver to someone else. Like, where you've dived into a topic and you feel as though, okay, this is something that's important about this topic, and you're going to share that value with the other person. And honestly, that is a big jump for the common man. Like, you're not really expected to make presentations. Most people fear public speaking more than death. And then, what how are you going to progress from there? Well, yeah, you just do that one little bit. Like, if you do that one-to-one with people who are going to do that, it's going to be both ways. It's reciprocal, and there's an understanding that it's going to happen. I think this is a really, really smooth transition into the point where, okay, now I'm comfortable speaking in front of an audience. Now I've built out this 12-week program. Now I'm happy to offer things at XY price point. And I think a lot of the programs out there that are telling people they're going to make a lot of money online, they're not addressing any of the fundamentals. They're not addressing communication. And you are practicing communication. In effect, you're practicing some form of sales when you're jumping on these calls with each other, because you want the call to be good, and the call is going to be rated, and you want to show up with some presence, and you want to give some value to that person and build a connection. So a lot of it's not necessarily intuitively understood, but it's by design. The way Uncommon Success is that it is attempting to build that slow cook foundation more systematically than anything that I've ever done before. So yeah, the 4 year thing has been really good for me so far, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you, Zach, but also sharing it with everyone in the network and getting feedback on it. How does this look? Is this what you want to experience? Where are you at so far on this journey? It's brought up a bunch of good conversations. Daniel found an app that has like a nice kind of journey process tracker in it. And lots of different components of how we can bring it to life.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and one of the things I want to call out here is like, why are we doing this? Because I think you kind of have two camps in entrepreneurship, the ones that are like very strategic and kind of just do that. And the issue with that is like not a lot gets done. And then you have like the screw strategy camp, like you just need to like take action and do it. And like building momentum is fantastic. And that gets you to kind of where you are. But like past a certain point, you just kind of end up running up against the same wall. And so like when we wanted to do this, like this kind of came as like coming in, looking at Uncom, auditing the organization from a strategy and operations, acquisition, retention, activation, referrals, and revenue standpoint, kind of seeing where we were weak. And it became very clear that it was tough to prioritize anything within the company because we didn't have this foundation of where are we taking players, like where are they going? Because when you create this, it's not just for like, it is for your customers' benefit of you have a clear path that you're going to take them on, and it's going to allow them to be more successful. But the biggest thing it offers you is it allows you to be much more productive by leveraging your time against the stuff that matters. I think we can all look back as entrepreneurs on stuff we have done and realize that like a lot of it was kind of a waste of time in hindsight. You get like really excited with something and then you do it, and then like you're on to the next thing like 3 months later because it never pans out. If you have this 4-year journey and you're able to summarize Uncom in one sentence, it allows you to say, okay, like we're building Uncom 5, we're building the player app, we're thinking about this new feature. Does it align with the journey, and does it align with the definition of uncommon success? If it does, cool, let's build it because it's going to be valuable. If not, it's a shiny thing that we need to put away. So I think like that's the kind of that's why you're doing this. And it's not just like a one and done thing. This is like an evolution process where you go through and refine this stuff. But getting this stuff down where you can explain your business in one sentence is going to allow you to articulate what you do so much more powerfully. And as a joke, like this is really just an exercise so I can explain this to my wife at the dinner table of like, hey, this business that you're helping grow, like what exactly do they do?
What do you tell your wife?
I'm still playing with the definition. So the best that I've come up with is a gamified education system that helps men achieve their full potential in being richer, smarter, more athletic, and better connected. I think what exactly like the gamified education system or like what that is kind of the thing we're trying to flesh out of how do you encapsulate the gamification, the community, the systems, the journey all into something that like the lay person can connect to words that they understand.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's something that players could also understand of like, what is that thing you do? It's a gamified mission to Mars, except Mars is mastermind to athletic, richer, smarter. And it's how is it gamified? Well, there's score. You can see the scores in the app, and we get tracked on. We track how many calls we do and how many leaderboard entries we make, and how much money we're making, and how many sales calls we're having, and we get rewarded in Uncom tokens, which allow us to go to the villages and live events and open up mentoring. We can pay for mentoring with guys who've done the things that we want to do. I think that's relatively coherent. It's different, and there's no one else really doing that. So it's still going to kind of whack people out a bit. But yeah, I mean, this would be a good one to open up, chat or using the chat box. Like, how have you explained it to your family, to your girlfriends, to people around you? What you're doing. How do you even look at it?
I was gonna comment on like the Uncom explanation, but
that's what I'm asking. Like how do you explain it to your own family?
Well, like I personally, the way I comprehend it, I like the way you talk about like it being its own country, like that you're creating basically. But I feel like that's way too much for the average person.
I think that's why we got taken off Facebook, because it's like talking about your own country, and that's against the.
But I was talking to me and Patrick Schmidt were talking yesterday about it, and it was basically just in the most simplest form. It was it's a physical network of men driven to succeed, who are connected through the digital world, but who are also coming together physically. Like that's how I explained it to people. Do you want to be connected with people who all value personal development, who all want to get, you can explain the Mars mission. I think that helps as well. But that really is what it is in its simplest form. A bunch of men who are wanting to improve, who all tend to be personal trainers, but we don't, discriminate against people who aren't. There are artists and other things like that. And I feel like Uncom will expand beyond just that. You tend to attract personal trainers because of who you are, but I think Uncom really, and really, I'm only thinking about this because of what me and Andres are trying to do in Florida, which is bring Uncom to America. and actually set up a real physical location here. And we've had to kind of think about, okay, who is our avatar for this? Is this actually an uncommon thing? And really what we've settled on is this idea that our avatar, or anybody who comes to events that we plan, or who wants to come live at this village or whatever we're building, they really only need two things. And that's, are they on the journey of entrepreneurship, of doing something bigger than who they are, to just be on that journey? They don't have to actually have a business, but are they at step one of the hero's journey, where they're at a 9 to 5 and they want to get out? And then our speakers are on that same journey, but they're at step 10 or 11 or 12. They're just way farther ahead on the path. And I think the general avatar that I've kind of simplified it down to is just someone who's not only in it for entrepreneurship and for business, but also wants to improve humanity and the world at large, and wants to do something more than just their own, like beyond just the orange in Spiral Dynamics. It's actually more about doing good for humanity, or doing something that's bigger than them. And if you can only target those people, and those are the only people you allow into the community and that stay in the community, then the avatar is more simple, and that opens us up to there's this idea in this book that I've been reading about, like, diversity of inputs equals diversity of outputs. So I feel like that idea of, if you bring 100 personal trainers together, the inputs are actually pretty simple. But if we start having musicians and artists and all these different people who are still aligned with our values, but they come to these uncommon events and whatnot, and they're living in the villages, the creativity and the businesses we think of and all of these things are just going to be so much more diverse. So there's anyway, kind of going on a rant, but that's where my head has been about all this stuff.
I think that's really interesting. I like the mission driven aspect of that. And that's kind of something to consider, because like this goes back to, he and I had a conversation over a year ago on, like, I'm trying to bring this thing to life. Like, who are the first people? And it's really interesting because I think that, like, everyone has this idea of avatar, like you're just going to find someone like on the street and like that's the person. But I find it kind of is like that diversity thing of, like, the organization starts to look more like the people you bring in, like, as it grows, whether that is a startup. Best piece of advice I got on hiring was from TK Cater, when he said, like, build your initial leadership team, that's going to be the composition of your organization unless you surgically change it. So those first 10 people that you hire into your business will likely be what the rest of the business looks like from a cultural standpoint, a diversity standpoint, a thought standpoint. And the first kind of like 10 or 100 people, 200 that you bring into your team or organization is going to be more of what the organization is going to look like. Because if you're doing a good job, that's going to ripple out. Like, if Max is getting results, and like Max has friends that are likely like Max, and be like, hey, you need to check this Uncom thing out. So it's one of those things, like, the clearer you are to start of kind of like what are those core tenets, the easier it is to bring in people who are good for that. And even though it's hard, turn people away early on that may not be a good fit.
Yeah, because like if you start allowing people who aren't aligned with our values, who maybe they're really all they care about is making money, and they don't care about health or anything like that. Obviously maybe they can add some value to the community, but if you start compromising on the values, I think you're slowly like decaying the actual community, and the community is the biggest part of all of this. So yeah, it's interesting.
I like that. Who else has a good definition that was really helpful of what Uncom is to you? If you were going to explain it to your wife or best friend who had never heard of this in 1 or 2 sentences. Alex, what about you? What do you think Uncom is? Or what is it to you? You're on mute, bud. Can't hear you now for some reason. Everyone can hear me, right? Yeah, for some reason I can't hear you, Alex. It could be headphones or. All right, we'll pause while Alex figures out the sound. Anyone else want to? Oh, good. There we go. Headphones.
Sorry.
You're good.
Sorry. I like I mean, I'm going to start using the Mission to Mars one. That's a pretty good one. I mean, for me personally, I've only talked about it with a handful of people, and for my wife, the big thing is I use accountability system in the definition sometimes, just because, I think Uncom can be a lot of different things based on the individual because it is so broad. So I think I kind of explain it differently to different people, but I kind of like that Mission to Mars sort of quick definition there. And, because I think those 4 tenets, the mastermind, athletic, richer, smarter, I mean, those are awesome. Everyone wants to be all of those things. And to me and anyone I've talked to, like, I've never heard anyone sort of like choose those categories and put them at the forefront and really sort of force people to think about and talk about like each one of those categories there. So I think an accountability system that involves all those 4 things there. I like those definitions. I only joined like last month, so it's still like spinning around in my head a little bit, but I love the definitions that everyone here has already talked about. I'm definitely going to keep saying these things over and over and refining my message as well to others, but also to myself, obviously.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
I think actually Uncom for me is more about not what Uncom itself is doing, but what it's like, or what it's not doing. So like what we're moving away from is almost just as important as what we're moving towards. So kind of moving away from like instant gratification and things which have become kind of socially normalized and towards longer term thinking is kind of the backbone of it for me.
I like that a lot because I think that kind of goes back to the slow cook concept that we were talking about that I really need to define out more in the coming days and weeks. Of it's really easy just to set your sights on something and pursue that for 4 weeks. Like, what does that look like over 4 months? Because if you just record 4 different things, a different thing every 4 weeks, that's 48 things over the course of 4 years. Whereas like having that one kind of common thread or goal that you're moving towards, there's a lot of progress that can be made in that time.
Yeah, it's like essentialism or the art of saying no to shiny objects, basically.
Yeah,
and it's just the community of people kind of wrapped around that core value, having a long-term plan and executing on it. That's so powerful.
100%. Throw it to one more person to define this.
I've got. Can I add one more that just came to my mind?
Yeah, go for it.
So I guess you could say it's like, this was a conversation we were having over here in the gym the other day. Like, what makes someone like 1% or 3%? Like, how come? Because I mean, everybody I get on with an Uncom call, like me and Patrick got on a call yesterday, but like we just connected like right away. It's like there's like, and it happens with almost everybody in Uncom because we have similar values. So it feels like at the core of it, I think it was Guy that just was talking about like what we're moving away from. I think that's like the core of it, is that for whatever reason, everybody in Uncom, for the most part, has this underlying, however long they've had it, since they were 10 years old or they were 18, whenever they like woke up, but they have this underlying feeling that society is pretty messed up, and there's got to be a better way to do this. Like there's something inside of you where you're just like, I don't want to do what everybody's doing. And I think that's kind of what binds us all together. That's why Keegan calls it uncommon, because it's not, a lot of people feel the same way, but they don't have that. There's nothing like, it's not so deep of a passion where they're gonna go the other path. They're not gonna go to the 9 to 5 or whatever. So I think that's kind of what binds all of us together, is this. Yeah. this feeling, not necessarily like society's fucked up, what are we going to do about it? But it's like, let's just build a better model. Like Keegan, that's what Keegan's about, is like, let's stop, like, stop talking about how the destroyers are ruining everything. Like, great, let's like be aware of it, but what does it matter to keep digging into that? How about we just focus on building something better?
I like that.
Hey, Zach, I'll be your one more here.
Thank you, Patrick.
I think the other folks have covered it pretty well, but when I think about it and try to explain it to people, I like the way we're framing it's a success group, and we have a group of men that are supporting each other and holding you accountable to make progress in whatever area of life you're trying to improve on, but a focus of athletic, richer, smarter. And then the athletic piece is kind of the first thing that I talk about, how everybody can become better athletically, whether it's for, performance or longevity, whatever that means to you. And you don't need a lot of things to start that journey, right? You can do that in your garage. You can do that body weight stuff. And if you can start making steps there, it shows yourself and other people that you can commit and make changes and get better through the other aspects of richer and smarter. And that's kind of where I start with trying to describe it. And then you can take it where you need to take it based on where you're at and what you're working on.
Yeah, I like the breakdown there. And I think the framing on athleticism is really important, because like once you have that as the bedrock, like everything else is built on that. So I guess, Keith, what are you kind of hearing or thinking about when you're getting these definitions?
Yeah, like to an extent, it feels like it doesn't matter, that what matters is the each individual player's journey, and that I'm okay with it being a little bit difficult for people to understand in some ways, and it's a bit mysterious, and that you work it out when you come in, and not everybody does work it out. That's, to me, it's not the worst thing for that, but it's fun to play around with, putting that definition together. I'm not sure if, like, it depends on the purpose of the definition as well. Like, is it meant to be practical, that players have that imprint in their mind of like, why am I doing this thing? And so you go back and refer it to yourself, or is it something that you want to use to face a market of people who have no concept of it and aren't interested in it necessarily? Like, you probably make a different sentence depending on the purpose of the sentence as well.
So I think like with that, like I view it as they're both kind of the same. Because the clarity of thought breeds clarity of action. So the clearer you are on what you're doing, where you're going, why you're doing it, the clearer the action is going to be, and the easier it's going to be to take really big steps instead of like short, choppy steps. I think there's a time for figure out what to do, keep progress going, keep momentum. But I think that if we're able to clarify, like internally, what are we doing, and then communicate that externally in a way that people can understand, I think like that's a very powerful concept, because that means like it's total clarity in the mission. It's allowed to be somewhat abstract and like what it is, but like it should be something that like somebody can connect with it, even just internally, where they hear the words and they say like, that's something I want to be part of. Bonus points if they understand kind of like what it is, and they don't have to understand every aspect of it, but like they can get the gist of something and say like, I want to be a part of that. Because I think there are a lot of really good products, there are a lot of really good missions, there are a lot of really good people who strike out in making the change they want to make because they're unable to articulate what they're doing to people and get them to understand. I think it's easy to be like the tortured genius on this one of like, just nobody understands me. But a lot of people are just tortured communicators, or they can't articulate exactly what they mean in a way that like rallies the troops and like inspires people internally and gets them to move and take action.
So yeah, if this is the theme for today, it'd be cool to touch on this with Alex. I know is defining his mission, and this is really at the base, I guess, of what the longer journey becomes, and then what your first product is, or even what you call your branding things. I know Kevin's going through this as well. He's considering focusing more on the gaming community because he's got a background in that, and it gives him a bit more of a niche than targeting. There's a bit more of a story to go with it. Might be useful because I don't think everyone wants to sit here and talk about Uncommon Success for an hour. Georgos also building his momentum with range training. What like looking at other brands, how do you see piecing together this phrase? Maybe we can take a few minutes and everyone kind of write down something around where their own mission can be described in one sentence.
So I think that'd be a good place. I'll give my 2 or 3 minute ramble. You guys write your sentences and we'll just kind of go Q&A style to flesh these out. So the best process I've seen from this is with Peter Diamandis at XO, and he has another company that I'm like, Exponential Organizations, his latest book. And he calls it your massively transformative purpose. It's like, what is that one thing that just catalyzes you and that like you really want to do and you would enjoy the work to do it? Still fleshing mine out, but right now it's how do I like create tools and technology and systems that 10x the impact of every entrepreneur? Because if I can do that, like to Max's point, the world gets a lot better. The people trying to change things have the tools to do it, and they can have the impact they truly want. One thing I'll kind of like caution you on when you do this, and like I love how it ties back to the slow cook concept, is it's really easy just to pick a niche based on like, oh, I think this would be profitable, or like it's really hot to do this. I think it's much more effective to look at like, what do you genuinely enjoy doing and who do you enjoy working with? Even taking like Uncommon Keegan as an example, like he is an athlete, is an entrepreneur, is well connected around the world. And like all of those things are kind of manifest in the way he's set up and structured this. And it's not just like, I'm trying to do this to make money. There are lots of things you can do to make money that I don't think may not work out long-term. My kind of view is like, if you pick something that you genuinely enjoy doing and you're able to stick with that for a long period of time, you are going to be the best in the world at that. And while everyone else is on their 7th or 8th niche, like 2 or 3 years into business, you will have stuck with something long enough to be the category king in that market. So I think as we kind of go through these missions, I don't expect these to be fleshed out today, because I think it's a complex thing that requires you to like sit down, iterate, think, journal, reflect on it. But I think what's kind of coming to mind for you guys as we kind of round out today on the mission that like you really feel like you're drawn to and like who you want to help. And then any questions you guys have for me or Keegan on how to better articulate that, and we'll kind of pressure test those. Go for it.
All right. Hi, guys. I've been sitting and watching on the YouTube, so I've been hearing what you guys have been speaking about. I just wanted very fast to first give my definition of Uncom, which is a very quick and fast one. It's basically what you guys have been saying, but so I think of it as a community of men who wants to better themselves and better the world. And we work towards that goal and help each other to work towards that goal. Right now, it's mostly online, but we are working to get this into physical places where this can happen, physical meetings, which are the most powerful. The thing I've been working on is range training. And the reason is that it has been such a big thing in my training. It has completely changed how I train. It has completely changed my results. And I see that there is a need for this understanding to come out to the world, and for people to get this missing piece in the puzzle of how to train, how to create programs at work, how to get out of pain, how to get performance, how to build muscle, how to build tendons, how to build basically any tissue in the body. So that is my goal and my mission. The way there is still being worked out. So that's what I would say.
I like that. So I think if you were to kind of pressure test that down to like one or two things, like if you were explaining range training to someone off the street and like those one or two sentences sell them into like, yes, I'm going to give this a try, or like, I'm going to tell this guy to F off, what would that be?
Yeah, that's it depends, also on the individual, what pre-knowledge they have. But basically it would be, to learn how to take care of your body for any circumstance or need you have. How to build your body to be able to handle and accomplish any goal you want. That
like
would be probably the short version.
I mean, I think, and like regardless if Keegan likes this or not, I am like ruthless about this because with people's attention spans being how short they are, like you only have, I think, that one or two lines to like get them to stop and say like, hey, like, can you like tell me more about that? Like I want to know. And if you frame something that both encapsulates what you're doing and sparks that interest, like I like what you just said, then like it allows you to have the second conversation. Like you're trying to get the first date so you can get to the second date.
Yeah. I love that.
I like that a lot. Make sure to write that down and then start kind of like playing around with it.
Yes, sir.
Cool. All right, who else wants to go? People got to speak, or the person watching this is going to stop on YouTube.
Okay. All right. I got it. I am here to help entrepreneurs produce the results they want with less stress.
Solid.
Mine was very long-winded. I'll have to read it off. Basically, Uncom allows you to fill the capacity within the human experience through the dissections and extrapolations of multiple realms within the four established pillars of Uncom, which in turn carry over and emit to the experience of what an enhanced, fulfilled life of a man can be if the journey is pursued, while belonging to an orchestra of networks that are of the upper echelons of both human experience and realities that which can be lived.
I like that. I think you just won on amount of 5-star vocab words used in a single sentence for the day. No, I think parts of that were pretty key. I think the human experience and the multiple pillars was a good way to kind of summarize that. I would challenge you, Kevin, and we'll like take your mission statement now on like how do you simplify that into words that people will understand.
But that is an approach as well, like that. Kevin and I have been discussing about improving vocabulary, and there is a niche of men who want to be challenged to read and to study and to improve their vocabulary, and that's what Kevin's playing with there, and that is an approach that you could take. It probably wouldn't be one that you would take if going for mass scale, but potentially for if you're wanting to have 1,000 high quality men, like it is an approach that you could take of like, this obviously isn't marketed at the masses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and that's a good point. Like, I don't want this to come across like you have to dumb your message down into something that everyone can understand. But I think if you can solidify your idea into something they can understand at first, you can get them to read something like this. Like Keegan's got a ton of really good long form content that we're playing with growing the brand around. But I think it takes someone seeing that small snapshot of like, I want to like listen to more what Keegan has to say for you to kind of sit down and go through the explanation of how all these things tie together, creators and destroyers, spiral dynamics, all of that. And I think if you're primed with like, you have this bit to like start on, and then you can go to the longer form stuff like this, I think like it makes a really powerful combo. Because like a diet of purely simple sugars and snacks is just going to make you fat. You kind of need that balance of substance and snacks, or like substance and like enjoyable foods.
Yeah, I
I'll
think
take a
like
go.
sorry, just to respond to it, but I think it's like frameworks and capacities of like individual experiences that people can pursue. Like realistically, if I was to like put it down, like there's different frameworks, the 4 pillars are different frameworks, and then the system just dumbs it down into, hey, if you want to pursue this, the mastermind, the let it get richer side, hey, you can go down this certain valley and then pursue it, like, I suppose. But it's just the network side, I just think like you're not going to meet certain people otherwise unless you were in Uncom,
Yeah.
like, and that's what I meant by echelon to certain, standard of society or rank of society that, you're going to meet those individuals.
100%. Yeah, I like the frameworks and snapshots there. I think that gives a really good explanation to like transition to the longer one. Go for it, Chris.
Yeah, I think for me the piece. I mean, I've only been at this a couple of weeks, but I'm already feeling like we have a business that's been going on for 28 years now. That I'm tired of this startup phase and ready to be wildly successful. And I think what I like about, I mean, everything else that everybody said makes sense about the program, but I think the thing that for me is I tend to be a studier and not a doer sometimes. And I like the idea of the bias for action that comes from this. And that's kind of my big takeaway over the last couple of weeks is just start doing, start implementing, start networking, start reaching out, and things will follow. You just have to trust that stuff will happen.
I like that. We'll do one more mission statement, and then we'll take it on out of here.
Thanks, Chris.
What do you guys got?
Do you want to share something there, Alex? How's it?
Well, for the specific demographic that I primarily work with, combat athletes, I wrote this in a blog and said this before the UFC PI put it all across their wall, but I wanted to accelerate the evolution of combat sports. But then, taking the lessons learned there and spinning them backwards to the rest of us mortals. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I don't have a mission statement. I mean,
that's good though. Yeah, accelerating the development of combat sports and bringing back the lessons to those who, to others who to win the fight of their life. Kind of, maybe it's a bit cliche, but yeah, that you can bringing back the lessons to others is also, it's a valid story.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a good story.
And the nice thing about that too is like, if we don't we can experiment at the highest level with those athletes because that's where those details really matter. So like in doing that also, it's nice because then it also gives sport sort of a different context and meaning to everybody else in life. So it's not just, to steal a line from Kelly Starrett, sport is not just circus anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's like the highest level of a moving, breathing, living laboratory where we can like stress test all of these ideas that we feel like we have and want to explore. And then just, trace these things backwards. Otherwise, it's just, it's just entertainment for entertainment's sake. It's just a money-making thing just for the hell of it. But I think that's one of the things that drew me to it as well, and why I work with combat athletes, because like it's like the hardest human performance puzzle to solve, because you kind of have to be good at everything about everything that a human being can be. And it's a very, very hard problem to solve that'll probably never fully get solved. But that's also one of the reasons why I love it, because you're never going to reach the end point. You know what I mean? You're always going to have something to keep chasing. And in chasing, and working with those sorts of people, man, like I work with children 90-year-olds, and like I can, like it really allows you to sort of expand your reach for sure. So yeah, I'm working on getting clearer on what it is that I actually do or sort of want at large, but that's basically the gist of it.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, especially like the capabilities that combat athletes have, I think, are, when you spin those back, especially for men, are like some of the most, what's the right word? I think like just useful, like being able to fight, being able to throw, being able to run, being able to jump, being able to move well. I think all of those are what the modern man should be able to do. And I think like we've kind of like a bit gated ourselves a lot. And like, I'm a power lifter, I'm a bodybuilder, I'm an X. And with those, like that hyper specialization has made it tougher to do other things. So I like the definition a lot. Yeah. So I guess Keegan, kind of take us on out of here. I actually have a question for you. So we've never talked about, like, why did you pick Mastermind, Athletic, Richer, Smarter? And like, why are those, like, why were those important values for men?
Yeah, you can say healthy, wealthy, and wise, and there's a bunch of ways that it's been said over the time. But if we said healthy, wealthy, and wise, I don't think it would hit. If you don't get the Mars thing, if it's not clear, then it's easy to mess up. What are the 4 things again? And probably half of people don't remember it and don't get it. So we probably should put more emphasis on the Mars, but it is sort of the dominant aspirational theme of our time. Like the richest man in the world is saying, I'm going to go colonize Mars. And the way I see it, we have a beautiful planet here. Mars looks like a shithole. We have a beautiful planet here, and there's a great life to be lived. And we're not living that life for the most part because we haven't chosen to. Like, what would it take to make life on Earth amazing for a lot more people, a lot more men? It would take the decision to do that. And that's really, what if our mission was to build a beautiful life here and each build bigger picture solutions, whatever solution is that you wished existed, build that here on Earth. And so it's competing for what is the most important mission for mankind. I would say it is about each individual man deciding to live an excellent life. Like that's the mission that I value much more so than whether someday someone lands a toothpick on Mars and whatever. I think it's mostly bullshit. I think it's mostly a distraction, and we should focus on living excellent lives. And whatever, if they end up having 50 people live on Mars and they pay $1 trillion to go and live in a fucking shipping container, then happy days. But it's probably, that's probably not a concern to most of us. So yeah, this is the alternative that I propose.
Solid, dude.
Something I could articulate better as well. But the idea, that's the idea behind it. That's where it came from.
Oh.
So yeah, we should, we each need our mission. We, choosing a mission, and sometimes just choosing a simple product. Like the thing is, like Zach's talking about, what shouldn't change is your personal branding and who you are and what you value. Like that is going to be relatively constant. For Kevin, he's going to be someone who is interested in having an athletic rugby sort of physique and wants to go fast and wants to sprint, wants to be powerful, wants to have a good physique, wants to be adding mass. And that's going to be relatively constant. Whether he does push with the gaming community side of things is like where he's going to serve, and you're creating that. I think settling on who you are is a great fundamental to then go and niche with the product. And there's nothing wrong with building a product to a specific niche, and that doesn't have to really change your personal brand. I think that's the thing that I would leave with on this is like, find that mission statement of what the product does or what your business does, but don't feel as though you have to change who you are around what your product is. And then you'll always have that core asset that you're building, which is fundamentally, are there people who would like to trade positions with you? That's fundamentally, principally what people are buying. Is like, if people would like to trade positions with you, then they're going to purchase. If they think that the product that you've built is working for you, then they're going to also want the product. Like that's how you sell. I sold $1 million worth of exogenous ketones. I was probably the person who was actually living a life that more people wanted to have than anyone else who was trying to sell exogenous ketones. And so that being the focus, your Mars being the focus, like that's always going to be the foundation. if you keep masterminding to athletic, richer, smarter, you've got a better network around the world. You're becoming more athletic. You're learning more about money, and you're managing your money better. And you're learning. You're becoming more interesting. You're learning mental skills. You become more confident. Then whatever product you build is going to be more valuable. And so that's when we started on this topic. Talking about slow cooking entrepreneurship. Like that's the way to slow cook entrepreneurship. Be someone that other people look up to. Have a lot of abilities that others want to have, and do things that others want to do. And it's not so hard. You will be able to build any kind of business that you want. Like the further that goes, the further you go as an individual, the easier any product that you sell is going to be to sell. And that's probably what I've encouraged Zach, who has had trouble getting Duxata off the ground. That initial phase is like, your personal branding has been too narrow, that at this early phase, when it's not about scaling, when it's about having 1,000 people believe in you, that personal brand side of things, that's evergreen, that is what is going to make any product a lot easier to get started. And that's part of the reason we've formed this partnership for the next few months, is so that you get to know Zach better and open up, opportunities in the whole network for doing more work with Zach, because I value his input. He's had a lot of positive input into Uncommon Success. But yeah, for everybody, like, how do you play that game? How do you be that person that others want on your team? Like, there's general abilities that make you a valuable member of any team, and we want to build those abilities, and then you just go and plug them into whichever product. Does that make sense as a framework? What are you finish it up, Zach? And that's the final thoughts from me.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that is kind of the general theme that I would entirely agree with, is like, you were building. I think there's a weird rush in entrepreneurship that, like, you have to make money and do a bunch of stuff. But like, at the end of the day, like, all you have is like what you're doing right now, if you enjoy that or not, and hopefully a lot more days of that. So I think, like, when you benchmark what you want to build, it's like, what are you going to enjoy? Who are you going to enjoy working with? Like, how do you design a business that fits the lifestyle you want to lead? And I think that's going to lead to more quote unquote success than anything else, because you're not sacrificing anything. You are intentionally building brick by brick, column by column, the house that you want to live in. And when you get the chance to live in that house, you're going to enjoy everything about it. So then I speak from my own experience here of, like, when I look back at a lot of my decisions on, we need to grow this, or I need to work with this person, or I need to do this, a lot of it was a bit short term of, like, I'm trying to achieve where I think I should be by a certain amount of time, rather than saying, this is what I want to work on. These are the skills that I have. These are what I've developed. Here's the value I can offer people. How do I deploy those to maximize my leverage and the enjoyment that I have? So if you look at your work in the sense of that, of like, what value can I offer? Who do I enjoy working with? And what is the alignment of both of those? You're going to find the right opportunity.
And it's still going to be work. You have to keep doing the things that you should do. Just keep eating the good food, keep getting the training sessions done, keep making the calls. It's not easy, but you choose your hard. That's the thing. Like, choose the hard that you're going to be able to continue to do long term. Build your business around that. It doesn't mean, it's like, I've built this castle where I'm expected to continue to improve my athleticism, or maintain a lot of things. And some people think it's unintelligent because I'm 40, and it's like, at what point are you going to not be able to do this? I mean, this was business advice I've had from multimillionaires, like, change your business where it doesn't involve your athleticism, where that's not part of the branding, because it's not going to work for you long term. Well, fuck, what if it does? If I can do all the same stuff at 50, and there's continuing to get results with the people that I'm working with, it's going to be even more powerful. So you build the thing that you want to live in, but don't expect it to be easy because you've done that. It puts pressure on, but put the pressure on yourself with the things that you want pressure with. Alex is working with international, top level fighters. Like, there's pressure in that. If they get fucked up, it's tough. It's tough to see, and you live and die by the results of the people that you're working with. But yeah, better to be in the fight with that than sitting at home watching porn, playing computer games, eating junk food, and thinking, fuck, all this stuff's really easy. and but you're not proud. You know, men need to be proud. So yeah, do the hard stuff that you're proud of. And I recommend building a product around that. That's my experience, and I think most men within this network have those similar values. But there's a lot of different problems to solve out there, and so you decide. But yeah, thanks for sharing around the sentence there. We can continue that conversation in the enterprise product development chat if you refine that sentence, or you want to share one of the ones that you've put out there today, and then we can sort of go back to it, or others who listen into the recording can sort of continue conversation there. So yeah, thanks everyone jumping in. Enjoy this conversation. Wrestling with these ideas is a big part of the process of building something meaningful. So thanks for being a part of that. You can see Maya there, my daughter, with Kevin down the other end of the village. Yeah, good times. We speak again soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Take care, y'all. See y'all next week.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, team.
And then Keys, you want to tag up today or?